Most people think control looks loud. Rules, orders, authority. But the most effective systems don't force behavior. They reward you for stopping. Stopping effort, stopping resistance, stopping thought. And the more you comply, the easier life becomes. This video is not about a conspiracy. There is no secret group pulling strings. It's about a system with a simple goal: optimize human behavior for efficiency. And once you understand how it works, you'll notice it everywhere. Because by the end of this video, you won't just see the system. You'll feel why escaping it is so tiring. The system doesn't begin by controlling you. It begins by helping you. Think about the last time something became easier in your life. Not dramatic, not life-changing, just smoother. An app that remembers what you like. A service that fills in choices before you ask. A process that removes a few unnecessary steps. At first, this feels like progress. You save time. You hesitate less. You move forward without friction. There's a sense of relief in that. But here's what quietly changes. Every time a system removes effort, your brain receives a signal. Not just, "this is easier," but "this is correct." The path that requires the least resistance begins to feel like the sensible one. Not because you evaluated it, not because you compared alternatives, but because it demanded less from you. The human brain is designed to conserve energy. It always has been. For most of history, that instinct kept people alive. But inside modern systems, that same instinct becomes a training mechanism. You don't notice this training because it's subtle. It happens gradually, one shortcut at a time, one suggested option at a time, one default setting you never change. No single moment feels important. Until one day, choosing differently feels strange. Effort begins to feel unnecessary. Questioning begins to feel inefficient. And resistance starts to feel irrational. Not wrong, just not worth it. The system's most powerful tool isn't force, it's the default. A default doesn't argue with you, it doesn't explain itself, it doesn't ask for agreement. It simply waits for your inaction. Psychologists discovered something deeply uncomfortable. When a choice is already selected, most people never change it. Not because they support it, not because they examined it, but because changing it requires effort. Effort means pausing. Pausing means thinking. And thinking in modern systems is treated like friction. So the system quietly arranges choices in advance. A box already checked, a setting already enabled, a path already chosen. You are technically free to change it, but freedom that costs energy is freedom most people don't use. Over time, this reshapes behavior. You stop asking, "Is this what I want?" and start asking, "Is this worth the effort to change?" That shift matters, because once effort becomes the deciding factor, the system no longer needs to convince you of anything. It only needs to make alternatives slightly inconvenient. Look closely, and you'll see defaults everywhere. Subscriptions that renew unless interrupted. Privacy settings buried under layers of menus. Processes that continue quietly unless you actively stop them. None of this is hidden. None of it is illegal. It works because the system doesn't rely on control. It relies on inertia. And inertia, once established, feels like normal life. At some point, you may have noticed something strange. Resisting modern systems doesn't feel rebellious. It feels tiring. Not morally difficult, not intellectually impossible, just draining. That's not a personal weakness, it's a design outcome. The system doesn't punish resistance directly, it does something far more effective. It increases the cognitive cost of opting out. Every alternative path requires more steps, more attention, more decisions, more time. And the human brain experiences this as fatigue. Not physical tiredness, but decision exhaustion. Psychologists call this decision fatigue. The more choices you're forced to consciously evaluate, the faster your mental energy depletes. And the system understands this deeply, so it doesn't block alternatives, it burdens them. Think about what happens when you try to step outside defaults. You research instead of accepting recommendations. You customize instead of accepting presets. You question processes that others move through automatically. Each act requires effort, and effort accumulates. By the end of the day, the easiest option doesn't just feel appealing, it feels necessary. This is where the system becomes self-reinforcing. The more exhausted you are, the more you rely on defaults. The more you rely on defaults, the less mental energy you retain. And over time, resistance begins to feel irresponsible. Why struggle when the system already works? Why question when compliance feels calmer? This is not accidental. A system optimized for efficiency cannot afford large numbers of people thinking independently. Not because independent thinkers are dangerous, but because they slow everything down. So the system gently teaches you something. Thinking is optional. Compliance is comfortable. And exhaustion ensures you make the right choice. When people hear the word system, they often imagine intention, a planner, a controller, a mastermind. But optimization systems don't work that way. They don't need villains. They run on incentives. Every large institution faces the same problem. How do you move millions of people through processes with minimal friction, minimal cost, and minimal resistance? You reduce variability. You simplify behavior. You reward predictability.
Thank you for calling.
Governments use optimization to maintain order.
Please hold while I
Clear
verify
procedures
your account
reduce
information.
conflict.
Your estimated wait time
Standardized
is 5
paths
minutes.
reduce uncertainty. Compliance keeps systems running smoothly.
Quality assurance, please note
Corporations
your call may
use
be
optimization to reduce cost. Defaults increase retention. Automation reduces human labor. Convenience prevents disengagement. Institutions don't need to control you. They only need you to flow. This is why the system doesn't collapse when individuals notice it. Because awareness alone doesn't change incentives.
Yes, I think
A
around
person opting
7.
out is inefficient. A person slowing down a process is expensive. A person questioning defaults introduces friction. So systems quietly favor behaviors that don't interrupt momentum. Not maliciously, not consciously, but relentlessly. Over time, this creates a quiet imbalance. Systems grow more optimized, humans grow more fatigued. And when fatigue sets in, the system doesn't need enforcement. It receives compliance voluntarily. Because convenience feels like kindness when you're already tired. When you live inside optimized systems long enough, something subtle begins to change. Not in your behavior, in your self-perception. You start to mistake convenience for preference. You assume the easiest option is the one you wanted all along. Not because you chose it, but because choosing anything else feels unnecessarily difficult. Over time, this creates a quiet shift. You don't feel controlled. You feel reasonable. Your expectations adjust. You stop expecting to understand how systems work. You stop expecting to have influence over them. You stop expecting friction to be worth engaging with. Instead, you learn to adapt, to move around obstacles, to accept explanations you didn't ask for, to trust processes you didn't design. This is where agency erodes, not dramatically but gradually. Not through loss of freedom, but through loss of practice. Agency is a skill, and like any skill, it weakens when it's not used. Eventually, something else happens. You begin to associate thinking deeply with discomfort. Questioning feels stressful. Slowing down feels inefficient. Doubt feels like a flaw. And the system doesn't need to suppress curiosity. Curiosity begins to suppress itself. The most optimized systems don't make people obedient. They make them self-correcting. You adjust before resistance is necessary. You comply before pressure is applied. You silence questions before they fully form. And from the inside, it feels like maturity. Optimization systems don't collapse. They don't announce themselves. They don't demand loyalty. They simply continue working. Quietly, efficiently, relentlessly. You don't escape them by refusing to participate. You live inside them the same way fish live inside water. Mostly unaware, occasionally resistant, always affected. And the most uncomfortable realization is this. The system doesn't need to change your values. It only needs to make thinking slightly more tiring than accepting what's already there. Because once effort becomes expensive, choice becomes theoretical. So the question isn't whether you're controlled, it's whether you still recognize when a decision is truly yours. Whether convenience has replaced intention, whether ease has replaced awareness. Nothing in this system forces you. That's why it works. And once you see it, you'll notice the quiet trade happening everywhere. Time for thought, exchanged for comfort.